Electric bikes are gaining in popularity. And this one here, Engwe L20 Zero Boost, has ambitions to become one of the leaders in the mid-price range. Does it meet expectations? Well, I tested it in different situations. From city paths to forest, muddy trails, this is Pavel, and you're watching the Tech Maniac HD channel. Welcome! Engwe L20 Zero Boost is an electric bike that stands out on the market as the brand's first compact e-bike with full suspension. It is an improved version of the popular L20 model designed with a wide range of users in mind. This bike is meant to meet the needs of both people commuting to work in the city and those looking for a comfortable and versatile vehicle for recreational trips. Thanks to its design and features, Engwe L20 Zero Boost can also be an attractive option for seniors and people with mobility limitations. Unboxing may not usually be the most interesting part of a review, but in this case I think it's extremely important. One person is enough to assemble the bike, but carrying the box inside requires two people. Unless you have a cart, because a package of this size weighing almost 42 kilograms is impossible to carry with one hand. It's worth knowing, especially if you live in an apartment building without an elevator. Although I live in Ireland, the bike was sent to me from Poland, and I have to admit that the way it was packed exceeded my expectations. Nothing in the box is loose. Every part has been carefully attached, wrapped, and secured. Even the saddle has its own solid protection. You could probably drop it from the second floor onto the sidewalk, and nothing would happen to it. Taking out the next parts requires a bit of figuring out. There are tons of zip ties here, and each one has to be cut. In reality, assembling the bike took me less time than removing all those protections. It's hard for me to imagine what would have to happen during transport for any of the parts to get damaged. All in all, it's no surprise. Engwe is a popular and highly regarded brand of electric bikes. Even here in Ireland, I often see them on the streets, and they're even sold in regular bike shops. Out of curiosity, I even checked an Irish website, and I see that in the last 10 hours, 2 units of the model I'm testing here have been sold. After this review, you'll understand why this particular model is in such high demand, but more on that later. In the package, you'll find a compact but fully functional pump and a set of additional accessories, including a user manual and a toolkit. The included manual is fairly easy to understand, but it's much more convenient to use the online video tutorial, which will show you the assembly process step by step. The only part that might be tricky is the front wheel axle. There is a mounting element on the bike fork that, although it looks ready to use, is actually only meant as protection during transport. The correct axle, the one necessary for proper wheel installation, should be found in the accessories box. Obviously, the more space you have to work, the better. However, for me, this small corner of the living room was enough to assemble the bike. Now that everything is assembled, let's take a look at the bike as a whole. Its frame is made of durable aluminum alloy, which ensures strength and durability. According to the manufacturer, this model has a maximum load capacity of 150 kilograms. The step-through frame design makes getting on and off extremely comfortable, which will be appreciated by both beginner and experienced cyclists. As you probably already know, this bike stands out with its compact foldable design, which makes storage and transport much easier. When folded, it easily fits in the trunk of a hatchback. If we have no other choice, you can put the bike in the trunk by yourself, but because of its weight, it will be much easier with 2 people. The folding lock mechanisms for the handlebar and frame are solid and well designed, so there's no way they could accidentally open while riding. This model is available in 2 colors, black and, as you see here, champagne. I've already mentioned that the bike is heavy. With all the accessories and the battery, it weighs around 33 kilograms. The handlebar is 68 centimeters wide, which provides comfortable and confident control. The grips themselves are also comfortable, and even after 5 hours of riding without gloves, I didn't feel any discomfort at all. The saddle is made of foam with an anatomical shape, comfortable even on longer rides. On the other hand, the choice of tires here deserves praise. Engwe equipped the bike with city hybrid tires in a 20-inch size, which, thanks to their 3-inch width, guarantee excellent grip. However, the biggest positive surprise is the use of a 3mm puncture protection layer here. Thanks to it, you can set out on even a longer trip without worrying about getting a flat tire. Of course, just to be clear, the risk still exists, but the probability that a nail will unfortunately pierce the side is 1,000 times lower. Riding comfort is ensured by the full suspension, which includes a hydraulic front fork with lockout adjustment and a rear shock absorber with a 30mm travel. Although its range doesn't match those of high-performance mountain bikes, it still noticeably improves comfort and stability by effectively absorbing bumps in the terrain. Braking safety is guaranteed by hydraulic dual-piston disc brakes with discs as large as 180mm both in the front and the rear. Gear shifting is handled by a 7-speed Shimano Torni, 300 derailleur. On each side of the metal pedals there are 9 round pins that provide good grip for the sole of your shoe. However, the downside is that the pedals are not foldable. This bike is equipped with a front light with a brightness of 30 lux, which can be activated by holding down the plus button on the control panel. The rear light is bright, wide, and highly visible. It turns on automatically when braking, which significantly increases our safety. There's also an integrated and very loud electric horn here. The fenders and rear rack are standard equipment here. There's a label on the rack indicating a maximum load capacity of 25 kilograms. I have to admit, its mounts look exceptionally sturdy, so I decided to test it by sitting on it. Weighing 82 kilograms, I didn't notice even the slightest bend. So you can assume that the 25 kilograms refers not only to the standard load, but also to dynamic situations like, I don't know, jumping down from curbs with a load. Of course, I'm joking, and this bike isn't meant for that, but I think the rack, with 25 kilograms of load on it, will handle it just fine. In terms of ergonomics, the bike performs very well. The upright riding position may not look particularly sporty here, but most importantly, it provides comfort, even on long rides. Riding comfort is enhanced by the ergonomic Engwe saddle with 10-step quick height adjustment. You can also adjust the handlebar height here. Electric assistance is provided by a 250-watt motor located in the rear wheel hub, powered by 48 volts. The maximum torque of the motor with the boost function is 75 Newton meters, which ensures very good acceleration and makes it easier to climb hills. Alright, but now let's move on to the most important element, which is the ride assist system. This model is equipped with a torque sensor. It's an advanced device that measures the force applied to the pedals and based on that, intelligently adjusts the level of electric assistance. It works differently than a standard cadence sensor, which activates the motor only in response to the pedals being turned. Thanks to the use of a torque sensor, the support is smoother, more natural, and better adapted to the rider's actual effort. This model offers 5 levels of support. Even the first level noticeably helps, although you still need to use your own muscle strength. The third level is the perfect balance for me. It's light, but not excessively easy. On the other hand, I would call the 4th and 5th modes the lazy mode. Pedaling here is almost only about setting the speed. The torque sensor works very efficiently, but I noticed something interesting here. When making sharper turns, I instinctively press down on the pedal. After all, on a regular bike, that would be necessary. However, here on the 5th level of assistance, I immediately get such a solid burst of power, which forces me to reach for the brakes. And yes, I know, it's my old habit from a regular bike that's to blame, and maybe it's just something I'll get used to. However, for this reason, I also prefer to stick to the first 3 levels of assistance, which aren't so overzealous. I don't consider it a flaw in any way, it's just my observation. What might appeal to older people, but not only them, is the fact that by holding down the minus button, an icon of a person with a bike and the letter P appears on the display. This is the walk mode, which no longer requires any pedaling, but accelerates and maintains the bike's speed at 5 km per hour. You can use it to push a loaded bike with groceries uphill, or just slowly roll along on it. While riding in windless moments, you can hear the motor working, but its sound is subtle and in no way disturbing. 98% of the time, the dominant sound will be the wind. The bike features a colorful, easy-to-read, even in full sunlight, 3.5-inch LED display designed by Engwe, centrally mounted on the handlebars and equipped with Bluetooth. In the recordings, it may appear less readable than it actually is. That's mainly because the camera was often positioned at the height of my chest. But as you can see in these shots taken from eye level, the visibility is absolutely perfect. And that's despite the fact that there's still a protective film on the display, which I don't intend to remove for now. The screen backlight is very bright, but when we turn on the night front light, its intensity automatically decreases. At the top, there's a battery level indicator. The large font shows the current speed at which we're moving, and in the bottom right corner, there's the pedal assist level. The I button switches the information about today's distance traveled, time, maximum speed, and average speed. This model is compatible with the dedicated Engwe mobile app available for iOS and Android platforms. The app offers a range of useful features such as global positioning system, route tracking, navigation, and saving ride statistics. It also allows you to change the level of electric assistance, turn on the front light, and set a password to secure the bike from being started. Of course, it can still be physically stolen, but without access to the electric motor, such a theft becomes much less profitable. Alright, great, but now it's time for some practical tests. This model is agile and easy to maneuver, which makes getting around in city traffic much easier. The full suspension and high, well-absorbing tires provide excellent comfort when riding on uneven bike paths and sidewalks. It's also surprising that this bike performs well even in light off-road conditions. Gravel paths, sandy clearings, or grassy meadows are no problem for it at all. The fairly wide semi-fat tires provide excellent grip and absorb bumps, minimizing the risk of slipping. Although the manufacturer classifies them as city tires, in practice they turned out to be versatile enough to handle slightly muddy forest trails. Interestingly, compared to a typical mountain bike, Engwe's offering provides greater stability here. The bike's climbing abilities are significantly improved thanks to the Boost technology, an electric assist system that, when activated by a button, generates additional torque reaching up to 75 Nm. Thanks to this, climbing steep slopes, even those with up to a 20% incline, becomes radically easier. The system automatically adjusts the power to the current load, allowing you to smoothly maintain your cadence even on long demanding climbs. Before we move on to the issue of maximum speed, it's worth noting that this model meets the requirements of the European Directive 2002/24/European Community and the European Norm 15194 standard, which in short means full compliance with European Union regulations for this type of vehicle. Well, according to the regulations, the electric assist system is activated only while pedaling and automatically switches off once a speed of 25 km/h is reached. The motor power cannot exceed 250 watts, and the assistance works proportionally to the force applied to the pedals. This refers to the aforementioned torque sensor system. And this is very important information because thanks to this, the bike does not require registration, insurance, or a driver's license, which makes it a convenient and, most importantly, legal means of transportation for everyone. However, according to the regulations, you can ride faster, but only using your own muscle power. Here I captured the moment when, going slightly downhill, I was able to instantly accelerate to over 40 km/h. So it is possible to go faster, and going downhill we can easily maintain 35 km/h, and that's without much effort. Once I reached over 50 km/h, but the problem is that the last 7th gear is so short that at that speed you're spinning your legs like a blender. Maximum speed is nothing if the brakes are bad, but here I rate the performance of the brakes very positively. They provide excellent braking power. On an asphalt rough path with good grip, they were able to stop me almost instantly. They're strong enough that they require precise modulation. Even on a surface with good grip, squeezing them all the way leads to wheel lock, so it's really important to be careful. And leave this kind of testing to the professionals. There's power, it looks good, and the brakes are decent too. But what about the range? Well, the manufacturer claims a maximum range of up to 135 kilometers, but as we all know, it depends. On the website, you can read that according to laboratory tests, with the first level of assistance, a rider weighing 75 kilograms covered 120 kilometers, on the third level 100, and at the maximum 5th level of assistance, the distance dropped to 85 kilometers. Of course, laboratory tests often have little to do with real-world conditions, so I decided to check it myself. Using the whole free Sunday, I planned to drain the battery from 100% all the way to the end, and it turned out to be harder than I could have ever imagined. To drain it as quickly as possible, I rode on the 5th highest support level, deliberately slowing down and speeding up, testing the bike's capabilities. On the climbs, I pedaled only minimally, while totally overusing the boost button. Actually, I used it not only on inclines but also when accelerating. My behavior, at least in terms of economical riding, was downright reprehensible. I rode several dozen kilometers of bike-unfriendly paths through grass. After a few hours, in order to drain the bike's battery even faster, I went to the park and rode among the deer through relatively tall, thick grass. I also chose forest paths full of protruding roots and branches. All of this just to drain the battery as quickly as possible. I suppose that if I had seen someone else riding like I did that day, I would have thought he was a complete fool, but there was logic to it, believe me. You see, on asphalt, this bike glides along without the slightest effort. Maintaining 25 kilometers per hour is absolutely no problem. Off-road conditions, bumps, and steep climbs force the motor to work constantly and hard, which of course speeds up battery drain. So what do you think? How long did it last? 15 kilometers? Maybe 20? The result absolutely surprised me. Well, after riding more than 63 kilometers, only then did the low battery warning appear. So, what do you think? Is that the end of the fun? Does it mean I have to slowly push the bike home now? Well, let me tell you, no, nothing like that. Even on reserve, the engine still supports me, and that's great news because there's still a way to go before I get home. 68th kilometer, and you can already feel that the assist, although still there, is very, very weak. Yes, my friends, the bike really had to endure a lot, because I rode as much as 68 kilometers, of which only about maybe 20 were on asphalt, and the rest was off-road, which definitely wasn't the easiest. In the end, I went over 70 kilometers, and although the last 2 kilometers finally required more effort from me, the engine was still giving me a bit of support. This whole trip took me 293 minutes of riding, which is almost 5 hours. Of course, I wasn't rushing like crazy. I savored every moment of this special day, appreciating its beauty. It's kind of cool that I managed to ride that much, but how much will you be able to ride on this bike? Well, the answer is the same as always, it depends. I weigh 82 kilograms, and on top of that, I had a backpack with a big bottle of water, a jacket, a tripod, and a few other little things. As you can imagine, weight matters a lot here. The same goes for the terrain we're moving on and the speed we maintain. The wind also has an impact and of course the level of assistance you've set. For most buyers, such a bike will be just a means of transportation. For me, that one spring day was something more. The bike became a tool for discovering the beauty of the surrounding world. Although I have lived in Ireland for over 18 years, for the first time in a long while, I was able to marvel anew at what surrounds me. I rode onto trails I hadn't known before and discovered places and neighborhoods I probably never would have visited otherwise. This is the first electric bike I'm reviewing on the channel, and I already know that I want more of these devices. Earlier, I tested a scooter, but its small wheels and lack of stability in tough terrain would never have allowed me to cover dozens of kilometers in difficult conditions. On the other hand, a bike gives you a completely new freedom to explore, and above all, greater safety. It absolutely amazed me, but now let's talk about the battery, charging, and energy efficiency. Well, this model is equipped with a removable lithium-ion battery with a capacity of 13.5 ampere hours, which translates to 648 watt-hours. We can charge it directly, but there is a small rubber cover in the frame that you just need to open to access the charging port. What will surprise you is the charging time. Charging the battery from completely empty to 100% takes just 2 hours. This is possible thanks to fast 8-amp charging. This means that the battery can charge at a maximum power of 384 watts. And indeed, right at the beginning, with a completely discharged battery, we see a draw of 355 watts, which gradually increases, reaching even 400 watts of current demand. This is more than the nominal power supplied to the battery, but remember that the converter itself also has its own efficiency, which affects the final values. With that much power, you might think everything is burning, but that's not necessarily the case. After about an hour of charging, I can say that the power supply is indeed warm, but the battery temperature is only slightly different from the ambient temperature. Fast charging is obviously a huge convenience, especially when you can charge your bike at work or during a longer trip. After all, we need breaks too. When discussing the app, I deliberately skipped the battery health settings tab, so I could mention it here. In it, you can adjust the charging speed. 8 amps can be reduced to 6, 4, or even 2. 2 amps is still 96 watts, but a full charge will then take about 8 hours. Okay, but how much does it actually cost to ride an electric bike? It's pleasant, comfortable, and even steep, long climbs can be tackled effortlessly. But looking at current energy prices, you might wonder if something like this even makes sense. Fully charging the battery used just over 7/10 of a kilowatt-hour of energy. Electricity prices are constantly changing, but according to data for 2025, the average cost of 1 kilowatt-hour is about 1 zloty. This means that traveling almost 68 kilometers and that on the highest level of assistance cost me only 70 groszy. And here you might be surprised, because I believe that no other means of transportation will be this cheap. I don't know about you, but if I had to cover 70 kilometers on a regular bike, dealing with bumpy, grassy paths and relying solely on my own muscle power, the end of that trip would be a desperate raid on the candy shelf, and it would definitely cost me more than 70 groszy. Joke or not, we all know how it is. Okay, but is there anything else you should know? Well, yes, the manufacturer offers a wide range of official accessories that allow you to customize the bike to your individual needs. Among the popular accessories is a bicycle motocross style handlebar, which gives the bike a more youthful look and changes the riding position. There is also a luggage rack bag available, which significantly increases the carrying capacity of this model. People planning longer trips can take advantage of the option for additional batteries, and for even greater riding comfort on uneven surfaces, it's worth considering installing a suspension seat post. The very name of this model suggests that the boost function plays a key role here. Is it worth paying attention to? Well, in my opinion, absolutely. Legal requirements oblige manufacturers to limit the engine power to 250 watts by software. Of course, safety is a priority, and I have to agree with that. But as we know, life sometimes writes its own scenarios, and sometimes you need more power. Imagine coming back home when your bike is loaded with jars of stuffed cabbage rolls and meatballs from Podliski. These jars are heavy, everyone knows that well. Climbing uphill on the standard 250 watts can be a challenge then. And that's when the boost button, which increases the torque to 75 Newton meters for 60 seconds, becomes not just a help but a real lifesaver. It literally lets you shoot uphill even with a full load. It's something that another 250 watt bike simply won't give you. The boost option also proves to be indispensable when starting dynamically from traffic lights or making a quick start at intersections, leaving cars behind. It's also useful when overtaking. You also can't forget about the foldable yet still very comfortable design and the full suspension, which effectively absorbs bumps and significantly improves riding comfort. As you can see for yourselves, this is an interesting option for people looking for a comfortable and foldable electric bike that will work well both in the city and during recreational trips. There's no doubt that L20 Zero Boost has a lot of advantages, but like any equipment, it's not without flaws, although they are few. I would include its relatively high weight and a lack of foldable pedals among these. For those who would like to ride above 25 or even 35 kilometers per hour, I want to remind you that the gear used here is not really suited for that. It simply lacks a higher gear ratio, but that's all for the drawbacks. So, is the price adequate for the features offered? Well, you can find the current price in the link in the description and in the pinned comment, and I definitely encourage you to check it out. But as you'll see for yourself, it's not low. However, unlike many similar products, this bike is legal in Europe and definitely isn't junk, and as I know well, you simply pay for quality. Engwe already has an established position on the market and consistently takes care of its brand. Buying accessories, spare parts or batteries is not a problem, which is extremely important if you plan to use it for many years. However, it's not as bad as it seems. A discount code can help you lower the purchase cost. Enter TMHD and the price will drop by even several hundred zlotys. If you enjoyed this thoroughly prepared material, please don't forget to leave a like and a comment. It really helps. Also check out my website www.techmaniacsd.pl, where thanks to the intuitive menu you'll easily find more inspiring content. See you in the next one. Take care. Bye.